stop people and engage with them. Sit at the bar, but face out so you can connect with people. When you go to the gym, make a commitment to meet 2 new people. Go contribute.
Because
don't just show up, and you will be shocked at not only the level of connection you feel from complete strangers, but also the opportunities to grow your business. Charles, bro, I've met more clients by doing this over the last creeping up on a decade than anything else, any amount of social media, any amount of marketing, any amount of even SEO. Sorry, but any of these things that I've dabbled in, never been good at. Maybe I need to hire you. But, these are the things that people have always needed and wanted, but it's tilting back to where it's a necessity. More and more people are starving for that human connection right now, and it's only going to get more intense because of where the world's headed.
Hey, what's up? It's your boy Charles here, and in today's interview, I have with me Nick Connor. Nick, welcome to the show.
Glad you're having me, my man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's all good, all good. We had we tried to do this a few weeks back, didn't we? But we had some technical issues. We're here again. I'm really excited to do this and kind of jump straight into it. So, I guess, Nick, for those of my audience that don't know who you are, it'd be great to kind of give a bit of a background into, who you are, what you do, who you help. I'd love to learn more.
Yeah. Nick Connor. I'm here in Eastern Europe, Tallinn, Estonia, not Prague, which I know a lot of your followers, a lot of your friends from SSM days are big fans of Prague. But I'm in the upper part of Eastern Europe. I'm in Tallinn, Estonia. Moved here in 2018 to get married to an Estonian girl. And that same year, I launched my coaching business. So I've been coaching men now for pretty much exclusively since 2018, helping them level up in, I would say, self-respect, self-care, self-love through discipline, hard work, commitment, taking extreme responsibility in their life, man, just leveling up in every single way as an individual. And of course that parlays into success in other important areas in life for us as men, business and relationships and all that other stuff. But dude, it's been a fun journey since 2018 being here in Estonia full time.
Interesting. And kind of obviously you're now coaching men, you've been on that journey. What kind of started you out? Where have you come from? Obviously, my audience can hear from your accent that you're certainly not from Estonia. So what was your kind of journey? How did you end up? Obviously, you said you met your wife there, obviously moved with your wife. So what's your background and how have you kind of gone from where you were to now coaching men and helping them improve in all aspects of their life?
I've told this story so many times, but I met my wife at the back end of a 5-year commitment to go and work for somebody else. And that somebody else was a company called Southwestern Consulting, one of the oldest direct sales companies in the US. But I never was the type of guy that would say I would ever work for anybody. I've always felt like an entrepreneur, pretty much always been an entrepreneur. Even when I worked for somebody else, I was 100% commission. And so at that season of my life where I made a 5-year commitment to Southwestern, I was struggling more personally than anything else. And I had a mentor, man, who spoke into my life and said, you need to go work for somebody else, man. You got a lot of talent, you got a lot of potential, but you got to have actual skills in the real world to make great money, live a great life. And it was really hard for me to commit to those 5 years. But thankfully that coaching, that mentorship forced me to see things from a different perspective, because my perspective at the time was selfish, was a bit immature, a bit ignorant. I was just full of ego and full of just testosterone, man. I was like, I'm going to go get this. Whatever it is, I'm going to get it. I'm going to make it happen. And that worked for a while for me professionally that certainly worked for me as a college and minor league professional baseball player. But it's like jet fuel, man. It burns hot and it burns out quick. And so I found myself at 30, 31, 32 years old, nowhere near where I thought I would be. And that moment turned into a 5-year commitment. And then in literally the last year, I met my wife. And throughout the course of those 5 years, I learned sales. I learned how to sell coaching. I learned how to coach. I learned so much personally and professionally. And that enabled me to say yes to marry my wife, my now wife, and move to Estonia and start a business largely based in the US and figure all that out, man. And I'm still figuring it out today, bro. You know how it is when you're an entrepreneur, just still figuring it out. But yeah, I never planned on being a coach. It kind of found me, and I've fallen in love with it. And now I've got over 15,000 hours, man, working with clients one-on-one. So this is the path I've chosen.
Interesting. Yeah, no, you're right. We're all we're all trying to figure this thing out, aren't we? Of life. There's no end finish line. It's a continuous journey. In terms of obviously you're working with men. What are men specifically coming to you for? Like, obviously you're kind of labeled as a performance coach. What's the main areas that you're finding that men are needing specific help with, that you're able to kind of guide them through? It'd be great to kind of get an understanding, like, what are the kind of main struggles you're finding with men in 2024, and what, the types of the men you are working with.
The thing that comes up the most right now, most recently, is it's all about face-to-face interactions, being in a group setting and being able to make a new connection. We're living in such a time where so many people are in front of a computer, and that's their main form of entertainment. It's their main form of connection. It's their main form of dopamine. I mean, everything is virtual. And it's been really interesting here recently, especially living in Estonia. That's one of the least religious countries in all of Europe. It has been overrun by other countries, Russia since 1992, before that Germany, before that Russia again. So it's a unique place socially. And I've had so many guys here come up to me and say that they're really struggling to tap into a new social group. And that's not just because of their background, their history. I'm also hearing this from clients in Singapore or Australia, certainly in the US. We're getting away from human connection. And human connection, to me, is the way to bulletproof yourself against so many of the things that threaten us as men. Isolation, loneliness, anxiety, depression as a result of those two things. So here recently, that's been a massive selling point for me because, frankly, that's always been a real intention of mine, is to be really good face-to-face and really genuine. And I was just talking to a client a minute ago, and I just said, man, like, I can't fake being interested in somebody. And we both started laughing because of how that sounds. It's not that I'm disinterested in people, and if I meet somebody I'm not interested in, I don't give them the time of day. No, it's not that. It's that I have never realized until maybe these last couple of years how genuine I am, because I love to connect with people. Like, I'm just a heart-centered dude. I'm very in tune with my emotions, was raised by a household full of women. Now I've got my wife and my 2 daughters. So, I've got women all around me. So maybe that's what it is. But overall, man, my disposition, I'm very heart-led. And so it's easy for me to teach that, but I never marketed myself as that. I've never said that would be a strength of mine to offer to a client, but it's just kind of this confluence of things where clients who are coming to me for a host of reasons, generally relationships falling apart or finances or business has hit the fan, shit's hit the fan in those areas, something is broken. And that's why they typically come to me. But one of the symptoms of their life experience when I meet them is that they don't have something outside of their house, an outlet. a community, a group of other guys, especially at a similar level of them or higher, that they can grow with, learn from, be held accountable to. And so I've actually been really excited that this is a new thing in Estonia, especially selfishly, because this is where I live. And so we just actually ran an event last Friday, and it was a smash hit, man. We just had guys from all over coming. But yeah, guys come to me for a lot of different reasons, but primarily, man, they're looking to get outside of their comfort zone when it comes to connecting with a new network of people. That's like the biggest thing that's coming up right now in the world.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We're technically more connected than ever with technology, yet we are so disconnected.
Yeah.
And I think I was having a conversation with someone the other week, and we were kind of discussing this and saying that, like, maybe 20 years ago, if you were sat at home bored, you'd have to go out because you didn't have social media or things to deal with the boredom. You're like, okay, I'm sat at home, I'm by myself, I need to go out to meet people. And you go to, whether it's bars and restaurants, clubs, whatever that be, or sport. But now people just, they'll just sit on their phone, scroll through.
Yeah, and it's a big deal because if you think about just the basic human needs that we're trying to meet day to day, all of us in general, we got love and connection, some certainty in our lives, but also some variety, some adventure, so we don't get bored out of our minds. Also status, and so you've got these basic human needs that we're all kind of pursuing every single day. And we're generally getting those met, or at least we think we are, from Instagram or from maybe some interactions. Maybe people are into video games that are listening, something like that, where it feels like maybe we're meeting some of those basic human needs, but it's relying so much on these external things that it feels very up or down. There's nothing really to grab onto. So that's maybe a logical explanation. But here's what I get into with my clients is when we are meeting those basic human needs and it feels artificial or virtual, what it really cuts us off to are the deeper human needs. These are the needs of the spirit. Two things: growth and contribution. Specifically contribution. I know a lot of guys that go to events, man. You and I, we met at an event. We spoke at an event together in Barcelona. We go to events all the time. And there's a very big difference between the people that really get a lot out of those events and the people that just kind of show up. What is the difference? Well, to me, it's contribution. I've forced myself to not be the athlete that I was for 27 years and just let everything come to me. I had a mentor tell me, Nick, don't be that guy. You go initiate. You go show interest in other people. You go do these things. And what it uncovered was a little bit of my true nature. And a lot of people kind of think it's the opposite way. A lot of people meet me and they think that I'm overly charismatic and I just, I can walk into any room and I can own the room. But the truth is I would never contribute those gifts. And what I've learned is that every single one of us has the need to contribute, period. Therefore, we just need to initiate and go do our best to fulfill that need. And then we can grow the skill set. But the world has made it a little bit convenient, or it feels like we're getting our needs met, but really it's very surface level. There's no depth, and therefore people are very unhappy for the most part. And even if they are happy, they haven't really tapped into that next level. And so when I meet somebody that's doing well financially, they're doing well, maybe even in their relationship, but they're extremely isolated. They're not looking for opportunities to go and pour into other people. A lot of people use the word service. I'm not going to use that because it's just overused. I'm saying go contribute, show up places, sit in a specific spot in the restaurant that you go to so that people can see you and foot traffic comes. Stop people and engage with them. Sit at the bar, but face out so you can connect with people. When you go to the gym, make a commitment to meet 2 new people. Go contribute. Because don't just show up, and you will be shocked at not only the level of connection you feel from complete strangers, but also the opportunities to grow your business. Charles, Bro, I've met more clients by doing this over the last creeping up on a decade than anything else, any amount of social media, any amount of marketing, any amount of even SEO. Sorry, but any of these things that I've dabbled in, never been good at. Maybe I need to hire you. But, these are the things that people have always needed and wanted. But it's tilting back to where it's a necessity. More and more people are starving for that human connection right now. And it's only going to get more intense because of where the world's headed.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think it's actually a competitive advantage. It really is, especially now with AI coming into the mix, and everything seems like it's being more and more dehumanized. Actually being able to go to an event and engage a room is hugely powerful. And it's going to lead to probably far more opportunities than if you're trying some of these other tactics online, if we're talking about in a business sense, to generate new business. I think actually going to events, it's something that I've probably neglected over the last few years, and I'm trying to make more of an active effort to start going to live events. I think certainly after COVID as well, it's like we were so used to just being isolated, and everyone's just kept in their bubble when they need to be getting out there, and there's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah, man.
So make the effort.
I think that what you're doing with this podcast is a layer closer to real contribution. Like, provided there's some action being taken from consuming something like a podcast. As far as a host goes, I mean, you're getting into real conversations that go a bit deeper than the average virtual conversation. But you see so many podcast hosts going to the face-to-face live setup. And I think that that's not just because it's working with the algorithms, or it's better for long-form YouTube content. Like, I think that that's happening because these hosts are getting so much out of the relationships that they're interacting with these human beings that are so similar to them. And then they have that 5 minutes after the end of the podcast where they really get to connect. And then there's plans being made. But the plans, to me, generally are always going to, let's eventually meet face to face. And look, this is coming from somebody who, up until these past 2 years, I had worked with, let's say, 150 clients. These are high-end guys that pay me a lot of money, and they can travel anywhere. None of them have ever wanted to really meet face to face. Maybe a few of them have been like, let's do an event or whatever. I've never been an event guy, but it's never really even been a thing up until these last 2 years. And I experienced it for the first time in Estonia, where I had an Estonian client and we met one-to-one to do our one-on-one coaching. And I was like, this just adds a whole new element. And we all would agree that for most part, if you've paid a coach, one-on-one coaching is a different experience than group coaching. But many people who have invested as much as I know you have and I have, many of those people that you would meet have never worked with a coach face to face. And man, I'll tell you, if you're considering a coach and you can get one in your home city, do it. It just is different in such a powerful and profound way. I find that I'm learning as much or more than ever from my clients because we're face to face. So there's this like symbiotic contribution that's happening that is very rewarding. And that's what I think people are dying for. They're dying for purpose. They're dying for fulfillment. And these are the things that people are missing, right? These are the things that people are missing. You brought up, I think, or maybe you didn't, maybe it was somebody else. Like kind of the good old days when social media wasn't around and you had to actually, if you wanted to see somebody, you had to go out. You remember the old rotary phones? I mean, that was a little before my time even, but you had to like pick up the phone and dial and like think about the fact that dad was probably getting ready to answer for the girl that you were calling, or you had to call to tell your buddies that you were going to meet up, or damn, you just drove over to their house and knocked on the door to see if they were even home. Like those days are so far gone.
Yeah.
But the fulfillment that comes from that effort and that intention in order to just connect with somebody, that's what people are missing. They're missing the commitment to initiate it. And it doesn't even matter what the response is. The person could be gone. But just the fact that you cared enough to go drive over and see that friend, these things are, they give us confidence. Okay, so let me unpack that real quick, right? Confidence we lose confidence when we lose trust in ourselves. We generally lose trust in ourselves because we break our commitments to ourselves. So it's all about our behavior. And Conor McGregor, he did a really great interview, and he was talking about how he fell off. And he said the big difference between my last fight where I won and this fight where I lost was I would tell myself, don't drink that, and I would drink that. I'd tell myself, don't go there, and I would go there. And he said, I just lost that edge. So that edge that he was talking about was that he listened to himself. He kept his promises. He followed through. And these little things that people are missing by settling for virtual connection is the effort and the intention. I want to see somebody. I have to go do something about it. And then you go try. That is very rewarding to us as individuals. That builds confidence. Then it also builds a skill set. And so, these are the ingredients that I think are super powerful that we need to have uncovered again. We all have them, but we've just gotten away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good points. I like, what you mentioned about keeping the promises that you make to yourself. I think that's a very powerful thing. And let's face it, a large majority of the population don't keep the promises that they make to themselves. And it's that 1% to 2% that see the biggest results in all areas of their life. So yeah, I think it's a hugely powerful kind of quote to remember. Almost it's one that you need to print out, put it on your bathroom mirror, and memorize and internalize.
Yeah, or forget. Like, dude, when you met me originally, when I was at 4.5 years, I mentioned that. So we'll just start there. This started much earlier than that. I was just lazy, man. I was just flat out lazy. And I took so many things for granted early in my life. My athletic ability. Yeah, I made it to D1, and yeah, I got a taste of minor league professional baseball. But the truth is I never really knew what hard work was. And I was always the guy that wanted the most, but wanted to put in the least to get the most. And during those seasons of my life where I'd act like I was making the calls, the sales calls, I'd fudge the numbers. I'd be like, yeah, I made 15 calls and I'd make 3. I didn't know this, but I knew I was being dishonest, which I was okay with. I was okay at that time being dishonest. Integrity didn't matter as much to me. But what I didn't realize, and I hope that if I would have known this back then, I wouldn't have done it. I was absolutely hammering my self-respect, just crushing my self-respect, that I was allowing myself to be so arrogant, being the guy that acted like he had all the answers, but most of the time never did. And that just completely crushed my self-respect. And so then I projected, and that's when I started doing a whole bunch of things that put me into just some shame and guilt. Overboard with alcohol, bottle service when I couldn't afford it, hooking up with a bunch of girls, which was all fun at the time. But these things continued to bury my self-belief and my self-confidence. And it wasn't until 2 things. One, I got a mentor, but also I found faith, where I was willing to have the courage to stare down the reality of my life, turning the lights on. Faith made me turn the lights on in my life. It gave me the courage. I didn't feel like I was doing it alone. Now I have this relationship with God. Having a mentor who could see me, he turned the lights on for me. So he stuck around and he still believed in me. That gave me the courage and the willingness to look at the reality of my life. And when I looked at the reality of my life, I was lazy, arrogant, and I wasn't doing the work. And that's when I started to realize and unpack how years of doing that was keeping me from actually progressing personally, professionally, financially, all those things. And most important to me, was keeping me from the relationship I wanted most. So to anybody out there listening, like, if you think that your consequence to not keeping your promises is like binary, I have integrity or I don't. I lied or I'm honest. No, bro, it's so much deeper than that. It's so much fucking deeper than that. It's about your own self-respect. And if you don't respect yourself, you're going to see the world through a lens of a lack of self-respect. This is why so many guys have problems in their relationship. They think their wife is belittling them, but really, she's just probably might be, but she's likely not doing it as bad as you think, as often as you think. And she's typically maybe even not
that deep with some of the little remarks she made. But because you're already belittling yourself and you have no self-respect, that's what you see and that's what you hear. And so this causes massive problems in relationships with guys. But it's fixable. It's
If you
fixable.
can't keep the promises to yourself, how can you expect to keep it to your partner or your wife?
Yeah, if you don't listen to you, why should she listen to you? That's from Wes Watson. He said that, and I really resonated with that. And that just goes back to extreme accountability and vulnerability and honesty and really turning the lights on in your life. And that takes courage. That's not easy to do. Sitting in the darkness, sober, in silence, when you're going through the shit, it's dark, man. And we most of the time do whatever we can to avoid that scenario. But that darkness, that sitting in that silence is actually where we're forged into the person, the man that we actually know we are capable of being. But instead, guys just scroll, they look at porn, they bury themselves in podcasts and information. That's another way of distracting out of the actual work that needs to be done. So, these are the things that are crushing guys, and they crushed me for so long. And shit, man, I'm still going through stuff of unpacking what I'm capable of. I'm still capable of that darkness, bro. Still capable of all the work that I've done. All of us are. That darkness is always.
No, it's like I said, you always got to keep checking yourself, because it's easy to fall back into bad habits and then not keep those promises. In terms of then, let's try and give men out there some kind of, like, let's say you're in that bit of a bad spot. You're in that kind of dark space where you're not keeping the promises that you make to yourself, and you're in a little bit of a spiral. What actionable steps would you suggest men take to get themselves out of it? I mean, I know that you've been on your kind of, I've been looking at your Instagram, your fitness transformation. You're looking shredded. You've clearly put in the work. Would you say that fitness is a cornerstone for everything else to follow? What are the things that men can do to really kind of take accountability and start getting themselves in the right direction?
So let's start with the mindset shift. Most men right now are talking about the future, but they're not bold enough to talk about their future. So guys will get into discussion about AI, crypto, maybe politics if you're in a tight circle and people are willing to talk about it. Maybe their relationship, maybe. But generally, they're not talking about where they're headed, what they need to overcome right now, who they're intent on becoming. And part of the reason why they don't talk about that is because they're too caught up in the past. They're thinking too much about the past. They're acting based on a version of themselves that's stuck in the past. And that's how they show up in the present. So the other piece is the present moment, the here and now. Some guys are just so focused on what's right in front of them that they have no perspective. They have nobody in their corner talking to them about what they're going through, because they're not talking to anybody about it, and they have limited outlets that they can trust, that can actually give them a perspective that will help them get through what they're going through. Okay, so you don't want to be in the first two categories. The past is the past. And even if your past is checkered like mine is, like I know yours are, all of our pasts are checkered. You're not the only one. Get over your terminal uniqueness, bro. Like, you're not fucking unique. You had shit that you had to overcome that was some of your fault, some of your not fault. Stop dwelling on the past, even if the past is yesterday. Now we get into the present. You need perspective. More than ever, we need perspective. There's so few people that we can trust out there that are giving away free information. You got to find those sources of information. The source content, not the derivative of the derivative of the derivative. That's why I go to the Bible every single day. So what is your source content so that you can get some perspective? Commit to that every single day. But then be bold enough to speak about where you're headed and what you need to overcome. So that's the mindset. Let's get into the execution of that. Before your responsibilities wake up in the morning, You've got, let's say, 3 hours to build the man that you need to be when those responsibilities wake up. Your wife, your kids, your clients, your girlfriend, whatever. So that precious time between, let's say, 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. is where you forge the version of yourself you're going to show up as each day. So number one, how do you get out of the past? You rectify what happened yesterday. Look at the test you failed yesterday. Predict that you're going to go through some of those tests today, and just envision the way you're going to respond today differently than you did yesterday. Now we don't have to think about yesterday. We're out of the past. Now we get into the present. What do we need in the present? We need perspective. Tap into some source content, whether that's the Bible. I fucking highly recommend the Bible to even people that aren't Christians. Get into the Quran. Get into source content. Get perspective. Then get some ideas out of your system. Some ideas, some creativity. And then we're going to get out of your head and we're going to contribute. Send a gratitude message to somebody in your life. Why? Because your day is not fucking about you. If you can just get out of me mode, produce, victim mode, she did this to me. My wife said this to me. If you can start your day by serving others, contributing to somebody else just by sending a gratitude message, that's a powerful way to shift you into contribution. And then the last thing, move your body. Lift heavy weight. Move heavy shit. And if you don't like it, too bad. If you're a man today and you care about being a man, masculinity, whatever, red pill, blue pill, whatever, go lift heavy shit. That will set you up for success as a man. And now you start your day. Maybe now you have 40% of your full tank, 60% maybe. Maybe you feel like 80% today. But the point is because of that process, because of that commitment and that perspective shift, now you show up in the day in what I call overflow. You actually have something to contribute because you've taken care of you. Basic needs, basic human needs, man. You've taken care of those things first thing in the morning. Now you can just go contribute in the world. And that is 100% of what I do on a daily basis. Some days I miss, and when I miss, guess what? The very next day, I get to bounce back. What's the next best decision? It's built in. So we don't string together weeks on my team. We don't string together months on my team. We might go a day or two, but that's it. Why? Because we have all the elements. We've got a practice. We've got perspective. We're not only in the present moment with that perspective, but we actually have a vision and we speak about where we're headed. Like, dude, you're a king. I see you as a king. You were once a warrior. When I first met you, we were in warrior seasons. Now we're in king building seasons. That's why you do a podcast. That's what a king does. He brings resources together and he disseminates to the people. You are building a kingdom. That makes you a king. That's why I have this king right behind me. I'm in my king mode also. A king has to go out and contribute to other people, has to give, has to serve. And so when you're around other kings, they can remind you who the fuck you are. But the problem for most guys is they don't have other people in their lives reminding them of who they actually are. And that's why it's so important for you to have a clear vision of where you're headed, a clear idea of what you need to overcome to get there, and then you go speak about it. Because you don't have to have somebody with you every day in order to be that king. A lot of guys are waiting, like for the next SSM event or, one of my events or whatever. And it's like, no, these events are to prepare you and prep you so you can go back into the world and be a lion, be the king. So, yeah, man, this shit fires me up and it's so important for us guys right now. So important, more now than ever.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think having that clear routine, whatever you want to call it, in the morning to get some wins under your belt before you start the day sets you up in the right frame of mind. And I like the way that you mentioned about, not even if you don't hit it out of the park every time, every day, like, you're focusing on the present rather than like, oh, I've done this, I've made this mistake from yesterday. You're focusing on here and now, and that's all you can really focus on. Is not looking too much in the past or not looking too far into the future, and only controlling what you can control here and now. So I like it. I think it's some really valuable advice there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's and more and more. I was just around a good friend of mine who came into town for the event we held on last Friday as we record this here in Estonia, and he was speaking in Riga, Latvia, and 4 hours away. And this is somebody that we've made a commitment in our relationship to every year connect, and we've traveled all over the place to meet, just him and I, away from our families, away from our businesses, no phones, pure presence when we're together, and honoring the relationship in that way. And the level of reminder just by being with another king, another lion, and being so present in that moment and feeding and being edified and fed and hunting together, it is much easier to go back into your day-to-day life and not even be thinking so much about the present. Like, everybody that's listening understands they need to be present. Everybody that's listening understands that they need to control the controllables. What I'm encouraging other people to do through my experience being around other lions that are bigger manes than me, all right? They've got more war wounds than me. What I see them do is they are clear and bold and outwardly outspoken about where they're headed, where they're going, what they need to overcome. What does it look like? Bro, they ask more questions than anybody. The most successful people in my life ask the most questions. They are never the smartest person in the room. They learn from everybody, but they're not just asking random ass questions. It's genuine. What's the genuineness? What they know what they need to overcome. That's why they're great networkers. That's why they have great resources in human capital, because they know what they need. So when they see it, they are genuine because they've already defined what they're missing, and they already are willing to ask questions. And these are the skills, man, that might be considered soft skills to many. A lot of people might consider this life coaching. Call it what you want, but I know for a fact that I can quantify dollars and cents from developing these skills and learning these skills from other lions out there in the Serengeti that I'm proactively and intentionally getting myself around. And so, look, I'm telling you things that I'm currently doing. These aren't just, strategies I'm giving to my clients. No, this is my strategy. This is what I'm doing to elevate my life every single day. And yeah, it's not about perfection. Dude, everybody out here is fucking guessing. Every single person out there is guessing. And at best, the more you guess or fail or whatever, the more feedback you get. So that's it. The people that guess, they just take a swing. They guess if it's going to be a fastball or a curveball, and they run into they get some luck, fastball down the middle, and they knock it out of the park. But sometimes they think fastball down the middle, they get a curveball and they swing and miss. But that's all anybody is doing. So the only way to fail or to stay where you're at is to not swing. And I know that's so cliche, especially coming from a baseball guy, but you get the point, I hope, whoever's listening.
That's a good point. It's good points. I want to change direction a little bit.
Let's do it.
And talk about finding the right woman. I know that a lot of men are probably, and specifically, I kind of want to talk to men that, and I've got, friends of mine that highly successful, maybe now in their 30s.
Yeah.
Focusing on business, success in what they think is success, but kind of completely neglected the process of finding, the right woman that they can eventually have a family with. And they're just kind of still in that, I guess, yeah, you could say player mindset, or they're not finding the right woman seriously. For someone that like yourself, who is married now, you've got two young daughters, like what would you say, or how did you go about finding kind of the right woman for you? And then I guess advice for men to find their lady that they could kind of grow with and build a family with, what would be your kind of advice to young men out there?
Well, first and foremost, stop making them the enemy. There's like 2 or 3 things that every guy is thinking about. There's really, let's say 2 things. And I just wrote this down. I want to pull up the note because this has been on my mind a lot. There's 3 things, okay, that's really driving guys. Let me see if I can find the note. It's let me see. Just give me 1 second. Maybe we can edit this out. But I want to find this note because dude, a man's greatest problem is one of 2 things. The female you're trying to find and get, the female you have right now. Just think about your life and think about your motivations throughout your life. Early in life, 1, the high school, college, the female you're trying to find or the female you're trying to get at the party, at the bar, at the club, whatever. Then you get into a relationship and then your problem becomes the one that you're with and dealing with that, the emotions of love in the beginning and the intensity of the romance and all those incredible things. But then the reality of the relationship setting in, you start to see some of those things fade away. So that every single guy, including Andrew Tate, who talks more about women than anybody and in a way that would say, maybe don't think about it. And I like Andrew Tate, but he is still in the same boat. We all think about women. Okay, cool. So how did I do it was your question. First and foremost, I started getting intentional in my life, period. I, first of all, needed to take responsibility for why my life was where it was at. One of the main things I didn't have that I wanted was a relationship. And I knew for a very long time that I wanted a real relationship. I mean, all through high school, all through college, I was never a player. I might hook up with a girl on the first night, which I was always pretty good at, but then I'd end up dating her for weeks, sometimes months, sometimes even years. I was never the hit it and quit it type of dude. I always was motivated to have a relationship. Bro, listening to R. Kelly, I had an album, CD, booty music. It was all making love music, bro. All my teammates used to give me shit. You know, R. Kelly, Jodeci, John B. I could go on and on and on. Next. I could go on and on and on of the songs that were on that playlist. And, you know, I'd take a complete stranger home and I'd want to make love to this girl. I didn't want to just have sex or fuck. I wanted to make love. Like that was me. So when I was getting into my 30s, man, I realized like my relationships aren't working out. Why? Why, Nick? Well, maybe it's because you're transactional in your approach. And so there were a lot of things that I could go into that I won't for sake of time that helped me take responsibility for that, which led to a commitment that I don't necessarily suggest to everybody, but I gave up sex completely for close to 3 years. Not because that's the thing you have to do to meet somebody, but it's because I was getting intentional. I identified a problem in my life that was keeping me from what I wanted. I identified that one of the main things was that I was transactional with women, meaning I'd hook up with women on the first night, and I decided to completely remove that. And that intention led to what I expected, but also so much more. Okay, that was 3 to 5 years before I met my wife. So that's, I would say, the easiest thing to say. You have to get intentional about what you're looking for, but also who you need to be in order to be prepared for that girl. There's nothing wrong with focusing on making money. In fact, I would say that my mistake was that I got so overly interested in finding a relationship that it distracted me from making money. And I'm okay with that. But also in my marriage, I'm dealing with some of the consequences of not being at a particular place at 42 years old with a wife, living in a foreign country, having a business with 2 children. I'm paying for the consequences of that. I have to take energy and capacity to build something that's not just my active income in my 40s when I could have been doing that in my 30s. Fine. I meet guys that are more like the guy that has built up a bunch of money, but they just completely neglected their character, their integrity, their self-respect, their self-esteem, their past. They've never resolved any of the trauma or the from the decisions they've made or that were made against them by their upbringing or whatever, their environment. So they've neglected those things, yes. So it's not about trading your problems for mine. I'd never trade anybody, Charles. I'd never trade my problems for yours any day. And I'd encourage nobody to do that. But it starts with intention. And then it starts with making some commitments to become the type of man that can attract who you want. And it can't just be one-sided. So I say, if you want to focus your attention, if you're really good in finances, get really committed to your character and how you move in that world. You know, if you're really good in your character and you haven't met the one, okay, let's just a common ingredient here. If you want to find a girl, okay, so if you don't have a girl and you want to find one, you're good in finance already, get committed to being the best version of you in that space. Okay, that could mean getting in better shape, dressing nicer, grooming yourself better, being more prepared, being more honest, being more interested, contributing, not faking the numbers, actually doing the work. If you're really good in your relationships, but you're sucking in financing, but you're still kind of just transactional, get dialed in at work. You know, be committed to whatever you're doing. Even if that's a temporary job, go be the best you can in that job. Learn how to fucking commit, especially when you're not getting what you want out of it. I mean, how many times have all of us left a job because we weren't getting what we wanted? You know, pulled out of an investment because it was doing good and then all of a sudden it started dipping and we emotionally pull out of that trade. Well, that's how you're going to show up in relationships. If you're transactional in your finances, if you're transactional in your business, meaning you're not really fully committed where you're at because you want to be somewhere else, how the fuck do you think you're going to show up in your relationship? And that's how I showed up for so long in my relationship in the beginning, bro. Like my relationships in the beginning. That wasn't that way when I married Lisa, my current wife. So you resolve a lot of the issues you're going to have when you meet the one because you move as if it's inevitable. It's inevitable you're going to meet the one. The question is, are you going to be ready for it? Are you going to see it when she walks in front of you? You know, when I saw Lisa cross the stage, it was literally the last, what we called coaches camp at the end of that 5-year commitment. I almost didn't go. And when I saw her walk across the stage, I was like, that one. I literally, it was so instant, but that took almost 8 years to be able to say that one. And when I met her, it wasn't some big grandiose thing. You know what it allowed me to do? Not go sleep with her that first night though. Say no to her when we had had a couple of drinks at the after party and it could have went down. She won't tell anybody this, but that actually happened. But I was like, no, she's the one. And if I do this with her tonight, that might instill a little bit of distrust. So I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, guys. What I'm saying to you is that's intention. It took me 8 years to get to the point where I had the self-discipline and the confidence to say no to a dime like my wife when I could have hit it on the first night. So that's the playbook. And this applies, by the way, even if you're married already. When your girl stops looking at you with that look, you know what I'm saying? That look that you used to get in the beginning. She stops looking at you that way. She starts rolling her eyes a little bit. Okay. It's not about her, man. It's not about her. Look here. Look at yourself. You can restore that look. And bro, us as men, I'm not the only one that had a booty music playlist. Come on, bro. Tell him. Charles, come on, bro. What was your song? What was your song, man? What were you playing for? I know you got one.
I can't be disclosing that type of information on the air.
I mean, you look like you might have been I don't want to say Luther Vandross.
To be honest with you, R. Kelly was the only one that I recognized from that list. I might be, I know you're a little bit older than me. Not too much, but
yeah. I think I got a few years on you, man. But yeah, bro, but we all are dealing with the same problem pretty much, and that's women, and that's how it's supposed to be. And we can get into a host of other things that contribute to why maybe women aren't in a place where they can receive the type of intention that a lion shows up with, where they might be intimidated by it, they might be turned off by it because of the indoctrination into just letting a woman be a woman and all of these things. And yes, we can get into that. But
yeah.
Yeah, I'm down to talk about that.
Well, that's a whole subject in itself, isn't it? I mean, I know that we've had discussions about this, and there's certainly probably a difference in societal norms and cultures based on where you are. I mean, I'm in Malaysia, Southeast Asia. The women here are, I'm probably generalizing, but are different in terms of they're more traditional in a sense. And yeah, I think there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of kind of issues where the genders are kind of clashing, isn't there? There's no, it seems to be there's a grey line between how men and women are showing up, and there's differences in, it used to be that a man would go out to work and a woman would stay at home and look after the kids and look after the home. Now, obviously, over the last few decades, women have entered the workplace. So there's a different dynamic. Naturally, these things evolve and change. But I think from an attraction point of view, and maybe you may agree or not agree, but from an attraction point of view, yeah, a woman is still attracted in general to a masculine man.
100%.
And vice versa, a man who's masculine is more attracted to a feminine woman. The problem we've got now is these lines are a bit blurred and probably in particular in the Western world. Talking about probably US, UK, Australia, Canada. I'm not sure what's it like in Estonia, Nick? What's the dynamic there between a man and a woman? Is it, from what you're seeing, having lived there for a number of years now?
Yeah, so I went out last night with a good friend of mine, Johannes, and I can't recall the other guy's name. He's Russian and lives in the Middle East, and Johannes is from Switzerland. And we're all here in Estonia on a Tuesday night smoking shisha and having a conversation about this exact thing. And we were talking about one thing. We were talking about energy. We were talking about specifically masculine and feminine energy. And the differences with Estonian women and Russian women, and then women throughout the East, the Middle East, Dubai. Gosh, where else was he from? He was
Southeast Asia as well.
Yeah. He's been all over the world. So we're talking about all over the world. And so masculine and feminine energy is real. Polarity is necessary for a symbiotic relationship. I absolutely believe in traditional values. I'm a Christian, and I believe a woman's sole priority should be protecting the energy of the household. And however that looks, that doesn't mean that she can't work. That just means that house and home should feel peaceful. And the energy inside of that home is absolutely dictated by the woman inside of the home if the goal is to have a nurturing, peaceful environment. We're giving and serving and contributing, receiving love, all these things. That's feminine energy. That's the essence of divine feminine energy. And so a man, me, you, we come home, long day of work. We're out there hunting. We're out there producing. We're out there working. And when we come home, the last thing we want to come home to is a fight, because we've been fighting. We've had our shield and our armor on all day, and we want to put it down, and we want to receive that energy. Okay? So that's what drives my beliefs on how that needs to be executed, is energy. Inside of the home, it's got to be peaceful. You might not want it peaceful, wife, Lisa, for me, but it's a requirement for me. It's a standard. It's a boundary. My home is a place of peace, and I need you as my wife to help me uphold that peace. We can't do it alone. We have to do it together, but this is your role. For me, I'm going to go out and I'm going to hunt, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to slay some buffaloes, and I'm going to bring them home, and I'm going to throw them on the table. And if you really want to make me happy, Tell me how good looking I am when I do it, and tell me how big my dick is. It's dead serious. Direct communication. What do you want from your wife? What do you need from your wife? And if you can't clearly communicate that, she can never deliver on it. But that gets into a whole other thing where it's got to be a willingness to be that. And that's what's gotten confused. Some women feel like that it's demoralizing to take direction and leadership in their household because that somehow makes them less capable. Nah, it's not that. It's not that. It's let's agree on what positions we're going to play. And look, I've never seen it really work where a woman's the provider. Never seen it work. I think it's the furthest thing from what's natural because men have, in the history of throughout time, women have not been the hunters. You know, in packs of lions, yes, sure, they're hunting and killing, but they're the kings of the jungle. They're going out and killing the zebra. They're dominant. That's what they do. They've evolved to be able to be the best killers. So even the females, that's work. What are the men doing? Bro, they're fighting. They're protecting the children. You know, that's their job. They don't have to go hunt, but they're out there making sure nobody's coming into their territory. They're warriors and they're kings over their pride. So even lions, who the argument's always, well, you know, lionesses are the ones that do the hunting. Yeah, they do. But you see, so look, man, for me, it's real simple when it comes to roles. Ask the question, is it working for you? Is your way of doing it currently working for you? And if not, are you willing to just look at and question some of the things that you're valuing or maybe prioritizing over your relationship and your family and keeping those things together? And oftentimes people just don't share the same priorities and they're married. They don't have the same principles and values and they're married. And that creates a lot of problems. So, yeah, man, never seen it work, bro. And I'll give you a personal example. When I first moved to Estonia, I deferred to my wife to like put all the utilities in her name and handle all the communication with those types of bills. I would give her money and she would set it all up in her name. That was cool in the beginning when her capacity was really high to handle that detail. But once we started having kids and she wanted to continue to work and I was out there working and we came home and energy's low, capacity's low, I want her to be about me before our kids and then about me and the kids, present, not thinking about anything else. And she's over on her computer because she's got to pay the bills. That's when it started causing a problem for me. And I'm the one that set it up that way. And then it started causing a problem for her because I set it up that way and she no longer had the capacity to handle the expectations that I had as her husband, but also the capacity that's required to be able to learn how to do that, to commit to doing it consistently, do it willingly. And that's where problems happen. So, you know, the truth is I was being lazy. I didn't need to pass that off to her. I, as the man in my family, was being lazy. If we were in the US, I would have never done that. Ever, because I believe it's my responsibility to handle those details. It's no different than taking out the trash. Yeah, can she take out the trash? Sure, but I don't want her to take out the trash, right? And it's like, okay, I'm saying that, but I also, there's going to be some things that I think you need to be doing, wife, and hopefully that's not too much for me to ask. It's not pushing you too far outside of your comfort zone. We could talk about that, but there's things that are going to be up for conversation and there's things that are just standards for me as far as what I need from my wife in order for me to be able to be who I need to be as the husband. So foundationally, those names have roles assigned to them. And the number one thing that I just mentioned was energy. Protect the energy. And I just gave you a host of ways that it can get messed up, confused, and violated.
That's really good points. Yeah, I think the roles have to be clear. And you're right. I've not seen it work the other way around. I've seen some very successful women on the business front, and they're in a relationship with a guy. Long term, it doesn't seem to work out, and they're always having issues there. And it's probably because they are in that. The man feels like he's not a man. He doesn't feel like he has a decision or say in how the direction. I do believe that a man should lead.
Yeah.
I do believe that. And, you know, I think the problem we've got in today's society is any form of vocalism, like the way that you vocalize this, is deemed as, you know, misogynistic. Any form of, you know, just the fact that I've said a man should lead and a woman should follow. I'm not saying that, you know, a man, what I say goes, and that's the final, that's it. Yeah, there needs to be a discussion there still, and I'm still, if I respect the woman I'm with, then I'm taking her decision into effect. But yeah, it's crazy where we've got to, I think, in society. And when you actually step out and you go to societies where things just work as normal, a man is a man or a woman is a woman, it's just natural. You know, my girl, she knows that she's responsible for the home. She cooks. She looks after me, and I am responsible for bringing in the money, like, and protecting and providing. I mean, yes, there's some differences with other couples, and there's, you know, however you want to do it. And I do feel for the fact that, you know, in certain countries with the cost of living now, it's almost difficult for the man solely to provide, because it's, you know, there is a economic variable to this, and it is complex, and I think it's been blurred from society and the media, and there is a clear agenda, in my opinion, for kind of blending the roles. Because if you demasculize men and you make them weak, then the powers that be no one's there to stand up and take a stand on various issues. And we're seeing that across, you know, much of Europe, US. There's obviously issues as well. So, I mean, it's a whole discussion in itself. There's so many rabbit holes to go down.
Well, you said something there that I agree with, in that it can be complex if you just aren't willing to be bold enough to declare what you want it to be. And if you have too many people contributing to the conversation about how your marriage is going to go, that's why it gets complex. But you really just have to ask one question: what are we optimizing for? Let's say that part of the goal is legacy or to have kids. Okay, so you want to do that with a partner. You get married, you commit. Well, if you're optimizing for having a baby, let's just look at the world, right? The cultures that are replacing the death rate most consistently are the Mormons and Indians, and one other culture is doing really well with it. But let's take the Mormons. Very traditional roles inside of the household. Husband works, wife stays at home. She's a homemaker. So, yeah, you could argue a whole bunch of other stuff about Mormons and this and that, but what are they optimizing for? They're optimizing for family. They are replacing the birth rate with more consistency than any other subculture in the world. Okay, so what are you optimizing for in your relationship? And this is where I talk about being transactional. Because, yeah, it might be hard in the beginning to have a single provider household, but you're committed for your life when you get married. So if you're committed for your life and you're optimizing for an ideal situation and you agree that traditional is what you want, then you work toward that and eventually could get to a single provider household. However, if you don't both buy into where you're headed, it's very hard to commit because somebody still needs to lead in the meantime. And, you know, one of the things that I'll maybe push back on with you a little bit is to leave gray area. No, you don't need permission to lead your family. You don't need permission to lead your relationship. Certainly from the person that you're in a relationship with. You lead, and then you earn their respect by being a man of integrity, consistent, listening to their questions, passing the test that they throw at you where they're testing you. And instead of emotionally responding to that stuff, make her feel safe by not overreacting or doing something stupid or hiding in a bottle of alcohol or pornography. You know, these are the things that earn the respect of a woman, especially a good woman, that will then be willing to play her position or submit, which is a word that nobody wants to use anymore. Well, okay, I'm asking my wife to submit to me, but guess who I'm submitting to every day? To God. How? Talking to him. I'm in a relationship with him, telling him I don't have it all figured out. I'm asking for forgiveness. I'm admitting my sins. I'm asking and being bold with what I'm asking him for because I know I'm going to be obedient to the best of my ability, to the promptings of my heart, my spirit, my intuition, which I call the Holy Spirit. So I'm submitting to God. And ideally, if you're with a woman that has some type of a faith and you share that type of thing, she sees that. That's the divine order. You are the leader of your household. That is biblical for me and my faith. But that doesn't mean that I can neglect my relationship and my obligation to a heavenly Father who demands my obedience, who blesses my obedience. So that's the order of things. And so it's not just blind trust or blind faith that we're asking women for. When this, in my estimation, is done correctly, it's that we're willing to earn it. Now, if you're not a Christian like me or you're not a man of faith, that's fine. Be the best man that you can, but don't be soft. Don't operate in the gray area. Leadership is about clarity. It's about conviction. It's about not asking where we're going. It's about saying where we're going and getting people to get on board with that. That's what leaders do in the best companies around the world. It's no different in your household. And man, I'm learning this more and more every day. Every single day in my relationship, bro. More and more every day. And I'm so far from perfect at this. But this is the play. This is the play.
Good point. Good point. I like these discussions. It's I've had many of these conversations off camera, but not many on camera.
Man. We've had a couple.
Yeah. So it's like I said, it's being comfortable to set your intentions and be clear. And I think actually more men need to stand up and be like, look, this is what I want in a relationship. And I think actually the women there would respect them more if they did that. I think the problem
all
you've
over
got,
the world,
yeah,
all over the world. In Estonian women are very independent, and it's very hard for them to follow. They have very masculine energy here, and there's a lot of reasons why that is. You know, they were in the 90s, up until the 90s, they were dominated by Russia. Before that, Germany. Before that, Russia again. So the men were shipped over to Siberia here. The most successful, educated men were shipped away. The women had to step up. But guess what? That's the same thing that happened in the U.S. during World War II, when the men got shipped away from war to war for the draft, and women had to go work in the factories. That's the start of women's rights, women's suffrage, all these different things, or the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And so this was a shift where women became a little bit more of hunters, of workers, masculine energy. But so it's happened all over the world. It happened in Russia, the very people that persecuted Estonians. It's happened all over the world. So look, I just think that the world right now it's so easy to be in the gray area, especially with the woke culture and cancel culture and all that bullshit. So the pendulum is swinging back though. You're seeing more and more influencers in my area of work with like men's work, talking about their relationship with God, finally admitting like, no, I've been a believer this entire time. I just never talked about it. And to me, it's like, okay, great. Finally, that's great. Let's talk about our real faith. Let's talk about what we really believe. Let's talk to people that don't believe what we believe. Let's disagree. Let's have respectable discourse. So let's also stand firm on our beliefs. You know, we can disagree with somebody and be respectful about it and walk away and still believe what we believe. And we can also speak to people that we have different beliefs with and then be convinced maybe that their belief is better than ours. And we can be humble enough to change our belief. And that's not my saying. That's from Anthony Bourdain, man. I think he was he was a philosopher. He was a modern day Socrates. If you ever read his writing, if you haven't, I encourage you to, or just watch his old show. Yeah. He lost a legend in that one, man.
Yeah. So he was the he traveled the world, didn't he? Was he a
Yeah, he was a chef. He wrote Kitchen Confidential.
Yeah, I was going to say, was he food?
Yeah, just an incredible dude. It's a shame how he went out. You know how he went out, bro? Girl cheated on him publicly. Like, love of his life, late in life. Like, he fell in love with this girl on one of the episodes. Actually, you saw it play out live on one of his episodes. Met her randomly in cities. He did it with a lot of different girls in different cities around the world for the show. And you could see it in the show. You could see he was like struck by her. And they had a love affair. And they were together for a while. And he got into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He got lean. He got disciplined. And there was a shift there. He started like really profiteering for her because she was kind of a part of this BS woke culture. And she started calling out politicians that maybe raped her. And that's a terrible thing. And I don't encourage anybody. But the point is he went away from who he always was. He never went into these overly political conversations. He never went too far into this other stuff. He kind of vacated that for this girl. And she ended up very shortly after that cheating on him. Now, I'm not saying cat before the horse, one thing led to another. I would never do that because I don't know the details. But I know what I know. When a man gives up who he is for a woman, bad things happen. Bad things happen. Families get wrecked by it. Lives get wrecked by it. And it's not just for the man. It's irresponsible to not define who you are, to not get to work being the man on behalf of the man that is in line with who you say you are and want to be, and then to get into a relationship and let go of those things that you've defined and worked so hard to become. It's irresponsible, and frankly, it's just a quick way to not live the life that you want. And so don't do it. Just don't do it. Point blank.
Yeah, I'm into that. Want to finish up with a bit of a quick fire round.
Cool.
Questions.
Let's do it.
Very quick ones. One thing you can't live without.
Oh shit, that's a quick one. My Lululemon joggers. I love them. I'm wearing them right now.
Okay. I did not expect that to come out. But
Yeah,
there we go.
the first thing that came to mind.
One staple that every man needs in their wardrobe.
Shoes. You got to have a good pair of shoes. Yeah, good shoes, multiple, but shoes you can dress anything up with a good pair of shoes.
But any particular shoes in general?
Chelsea
Okay.
boots. That's all. That's just every guy with some Chelsea boots on. You could wear it with so many. I've worn them even with joggers before. Lululemon joggers, like a good pair of suede. If you really want to go in, get some suede Chelsea boots in a light color. Wear it with black, like brown with black or tan with black. Suede Chelsea boots, black t-shirt, black jeans, brown suede Chelsea boots. Killing them, man. Killing them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Number one piece of advice for getting in shape.
Macros. Break down your macros: proteins, fats, carbs. It's more important than anything if you want to actually get lean and get shredded.
Nice. And favorite place in the world and why?
Hvar, Croatia right now, and two really. I'll just give them two because Hvar's in Croatia and then Rhodes in Greece, and those are two probably places that you've never heard before, and that's why part of the reason why I love them so much. They're kind of undiscovered. They're little holes in the wall. I actually bumped into an SSM guy in Hvar when I was there with my wife before we had kids. That was really cool. I can't recall his name, but really cool guy. Two great places in the world.
Nice. No, I've not been to. Have I been to Rhodes? No, I don't think I have. Croatia's definitely on my list of places to visit. I went to Montenegro a few years back, which is very close.
Oh yeah, that's right there.
Beautiful.
Yeah, you're right. Right by Dubrovnik.
Beautiful coastline around there. Yeah, interesting. Cool, Nick. Well, look, appreciate your time. Please go ahead and plug your stuff. Where can people find you? I guess you're on the socials. You got website. Please go ahead and let people know where people can find you.
You know, you can find me at Nick Connor on IG, but the best thing that you could do is like and subscribe for what you're doing here. And I just want to tell you, man, like I was pumped to see that you came out with this. You've always been such a genuine dude who makes a real effort to stay in touch with the people that you meet out in the world. You've done that with me, and I assume you do it with other people. And I respect you for launching into a podcast. It's not a small undertaking. So if you got value from this today, the best thing you could do for me is actually like, follow, comment on this episode, and support the show. Look, cool if you give me a follow, but what I'd prefer is if something stood out to you today, go and apply it. That's more important to me than any amount of likes or followers, period. So, I appreciate being here. Appreciate speaking my experiences to anybody who's listening.
Great stuff. Well, I appreciate you, and thanks for that. Those kind words. Good stuff. All right, guys. Well, until next time, peace out.
Cheers.